YouTube, see if we're getting any crackle when we start on that. I don't think we're getting it on Facebook. We are definitely getting it on the recordings for some idiotic reason, which there's probably good explanation, but we just ain't found it yet. Hope everybody's had a. Well, maybe now you can tell me a taco place you can go in that doesn't require masks. Or any restaurant. Dine in, no masks. What is the stuff about masks? And well, you got to walk in with a mask, but you can take the mask off while you're eating. There's that funky slide guitar music you hear every day live at 5 on Newswire on YouTube and Facebook Live that we just joined in. Again, I tell everybody you ought to sure check out the YouTube stuff on that just for the first 5 minutes of that. It's a, I think, I bet you if you tune back in or go look in the archives of that, you'll see that 3 or 4 minutes we do on YouTube before that is probably some of our best stuff that we do on that. Yeah, and I'm not gonna give it in, but if you go back and watch those archives of that, we ought to post the link in that so people can go to the YouTube channel on that in the comments. So just do yourself a favor. Y'all need to laugh of what's going on from all the. Again, I guess it's a be careful what you wish for, because we thought it couldn't get any worse with this coronavirus stuff and yada yada yada. Well, now nobody's talking about coronavirus, but hell, now the country, state, our cities are burning down. Now we're at curfew. We had stay at home. We kind of had a semi curfew, I guess you could say, with the stay-at-home orders and all the nanny state stuff of that. Now we're getting dead bang curfews and stuff like that. Check it out on that. Now, I was down at Riverside County Board of Supervisors and spoke, and they said they were not going to have the curfew that was on yesterday countywide from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. was not on. So check on there. I saw somebody, and I don't know if they were posting yesterday's because they said down at the county supervisors we're not doing it again, but I saw a post that the curfew was back on in Riverside County. So see if they got it back on that whole deal. Again, this is takeout, maybe semi Taco Tuesday of that. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's our new promotion. Any restaurant for the whole month of June, any restaurant that is not requiring masks at any time when you walk into their facility is going to get a free 20-second ad on the show for that. Because I went down there and protested. Is that for, that was yesterday, 1 to 2, because that's today. So, hopefully we're not having a curfew. I know Moreno Valley, California put a curfew on from 8 o'clock till 5:30 today. Yeah, see what's in this one. So that's what kind of, just Moreno Valley and Hemet, it looks like. So the Riverside County one is off. But, I guess we're going to have to get a hold of Eddie George on this. I guess, Moreno Valley and Hemet got to lead the way on stupid again. That with the curfews. I don't know. Is there any sort of threat in Moreno? Have you heard of any threats in Moreno Valley or protests? What is the idea then, and why that in Moreno Valley? I don't know, but I don't know a lot of stuff about this whole enchilada that's going on. It's on the bottom there. Cue up video 1. I forgot to play this yesterday, so go ahead whenever you got it on. This has got to be one of the greatest videos of that. You're not going to believe this one. This is on KIRO Channel 7 on this. This is a short one, about 15 seconds.
Well, that is saying something, given the experience you have covering these protests, Deborah. And it sounds like from your experience, you see someone actually walking away with a cheesecake there after the Cheesecake Factory was looted. Unclear where they may have gotten that, but, well, that is saying something.
They're showing a picture of that, and recue that back up because we're going to play it again. They're showing a video in downtown Seattle at the Cheesecake Factory. Here you go. And she's walking out of the store with the cheesecake, and the reporterette says, well, it is unclear where she might have gotten the cheesecake out of. No, I don't think it's unclear of where she got the cheesecake out of. She looted the store. They're busting in and stealing the cheesecakes and whatever out of the store on that. And I want to just roll that in on the deal because this is the absurdity of what's going on. Instead of saying, you know what, the alleged dirtbag that's stealing cheesecakes out of the place on there, and that's why we should be dealing with this. So that it drives me absolutely nuts on this stuff of what's going on. Hit the second video of this because there was the Channel 7 video or Channel 11 Fox News where our Sheriff Chad Bianco was taking the knee a la Colin Kaepernick of that. And I just want to get kind of your feedback on it because the whole Colin Kaepernick thing was America was bad, racist, and all that stuff. And that's kind of what that symbols. But I did mention it today at the Board of Supervisors meeting in conjunction with this. This is Sheriff, and I mentioned it last night, Sheriff Chris Swanson. He's in Flint, Michigan, where ground zero of the George Floyd situation is. I want to set it up. Chris Swanson, I think, did this correctly. If you really got some guts and you really want to do this, this is him. He took off the batons, the guns, no police uniform, just went up there and started talking to the guys. So have this video ready to rock and roll. This is Chris Swanson in Flint, Michigan, dealing with the protesters there. I think this is a shining example of what's going on, what we should be doing, what our law enforcement and protesters should be coming together.
We want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. Yeah. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. Come on.
So there he is. They're chanting "Walk with Us" on that, and he's leading the parade with that, with the protesters, and that the cops are not going. The cops have not got guns or any threatening. They're just talking, and that. But this shows, and there you're seeing the video now of the stark contrast of the ones that should be arrested.
Nobody's arrested. Nobody got hurt. This is the way it's supposed to be.
We don't need this to be a one-day occasion. We need this to be something every day that people stand up amongst each other and make sure things happen.
And so we are calling for a national night of peace. That it starts from law enforcement. Lay down your swords. It starts from the top of law enforcement. If they haven't done it already, come behind your podiums, your instant commands, your conference rooms, and walk into the crowd and just walk with them.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about on this stuff, and I say it a lot. If we start and we leave all the stuff off the table, kind of like the guy that was part of the protest was, and this is what needs to happen every day. And that's what, if we sit down at the table on common ground and just talk to each other, things will be a lot simpler on that. Gonna run this. This is Stephanie's gonna join us here in a second on this. This is another open letter. It started off to Riverside County Board of Supervisors, and they got the tape yesterday of that, so they had it for their meeting today. But again, this is a further extension of what we should be doing, where we should be going with both of this, both with COVID-19 and the protests. and how we should be proceeding as not only in our cities and counties and towns, but in our nation. So go ahead and let's roll it. This is another open letter to not only the Riverside County Board of Supervisors, but all public officials on the coronavirus stuff. It's not that we don't think that you don't care, or sometimes we come across like that or something, but in recent events that have happened, we're at a crossroads. Not only is California suffering economically over this, we're burning down for other reasons of this stuff, but this is what the cause and effect of these things are. You've kept us cooped up unnecessarily, and in the words of Manny Perez, the governor's unreasonable orders. Manny Perez, chairman of the board of Riverside County Supervisors. This is why it is imperative, not only a Riverside County Board of Supervisors, we put this the first rendition out to the supervisors at Orange County, San Bernardino, and the sheriffs in all three of those counties, but all across the state. Some of the sheriffs, the one up in Merced County and stuff, Tulare County have run into phase 3. But we really need to accelerate this. We don't need to any of these more restrictive orders. From what you have seen, I do not see any of the social distancing or social mask shaming or any of this stuff with all the recent protests going on. Where is all this? That we're all concerned of everything going wrong, that we're not focusing on what we should be doing and we should be doing right for everyone. Right for everything, right for everyone is to go back before this madness started in California on March 4th, when Gavin Newsom signed the first executive order declaring a state of emergency, and then on March 19th, declaring a stay-at-home order, sending us on this nightmare that we've been on. If there is no reasonable expectation that 99.4% of the population has really nothing to worry about this, has no reason to social distance or wear masks or anything else. We have cited the survey and statistics. Most recently, 0.6% of the American population is in nursing homes. And at best, 43% of those deaths are in nursing homes, and probably 53 on honest statistics. Less, you're still locking down 94.6% of the population over this. It is unconscionable. Again, we're making this plea not only to our county boards of supervisors, city councils, school districts, and probably more important, all of our 58 county sheriffs in California. We know there's some problems going on with the other stuff, but you need to stand firm on this, and you need to make this message very clear to Gavin Newsom in California. We're done with this. We are no longer following unreasonable orders mandated by the governor or anybody else in the state of California. On top of that, we are not allowing your goons to come in here and harass our citizens. Now, sometimes if you want to practice civil disobedience, this is probably where you should do it. Not saying to do anything unlawful per se, but something's got to push the button here. Because we're going to play a video here in a second, first one of that. Suicides are on the rise amid stay-at-home order in the Bay Area across the board. This is just one area of where we're going to do that. And then we're going to come back with a Press Enterprise article, and then the real story and the effectiveness of masks. So get ready to start the video here.
While this story airs. ABC 7 News reporter Amy Hollifield is live in Walnut Creek, where doctors at John Muir Medical Center are sounding the alarm. Amy?
Hi, Kristen. Yeah, the head of the trauma department here told me he thinks it's time to end the shelter-in-place order. The team here is speaking out now because they say we cannot ignore the rise that they have seen in suicides. Staying at home helped flatten the curve. And because of our efforts, Bay Area medical teams say hospitals have not been overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases. But they have been surprised by something else, a sharp rise in suicides.
The numbers that we've seen are sort of unprecedented. We've never seen numbers like this in such a short period of time. I mean, we've seen a year's worth of suicide attempts in the last 4 weeks.
It has shocked even longtime employees. Casey Hansen has worked as a trauma nurse at John Muir Medical Center in Walnut Creek for almost 33 years.
What I've seen recently, I've never seen before. I've never seen so much intentional injury.
The trauma team here says they are mostly seeing young adults die by suicide. They are worried about the mounting effects of loneliness and job loss as this quarantine continues.
There you go. Job loss. Young people of dying of suicide, and all kinds of people. A year's worth of suicides in a month in the Bay Area. We have another one up in Santa Clarita. Emergency room doctor said maybe just this week said maybe we get 2 deaths a week coming in here. We've had 8, and he's attributing it to this coronavirus stuff of people not getting care, not coming into the hospital because of this fear campaign. This is why it is important, and I believe for our public officials not to be wearing masks, not to be perpetuating fear, not through the media and stuff like that, or when you're wearing masks, that gives the dominant media the thing to put that up there and scare people in their communities. I'm making this appeal more so to Chairman of the Board of Riverside County, Mr. Victor Manuel Perez. A lot of the Spanish media is really out there pushing this narrative and scaring the Spanish-speaking people to death over this stuff. I believe, and I think the evidence shows unnecessarily. How many lives are being affected or lost over the actions that you have and are continuing to take? That is unconscionable in my view.
I agree with you 100%. I think that they put so much fear into the residents that it needs to just stop. I mean, look at all these people protesting. Nobody's scared now. We need to get back to California the way it was. Open up our schools, get back to living. Become a nation together.
Yes, and this is much more important, especially what has broken out in the last couple of days. Definitely. Is coming together in that. And coming together is back to doing normal. Cited examples, and we'll put them together, but in Tennessee, at Tazewell Speedway, at Lincoln Speedway in Pennsylvania, Tulsa Speedway in Oklahoma, fans full of stands, not social distancing, and again, look at the numbers of the people, of the protesters that are coming on, and we don't hear the social shaming of that, of not wearing masks or not doing this, social distancing, thousands of people on that. If you were consistent on that, you would be out there doing that. Here's another one. Here's from the Press Enterprise article. Afraid to go to the hospital during coronavirus. Delaying healthcare can be deadly, doctors warn. One LA emergency room doctor urged sooner visits after deaths in 5 days shown tragedy of putting out basic emergency care. Goes on to write on this thing. It's by Ryan Carter. Pre-pandemic, an empty waiting room at a hospital might be seen as a good thing, but fewer injuries, less suffering, fewer heart attacks, fewer strokes, fewer gunshot wounds, fewer patients healthier public the logic might go. But Dr. Jason Fisher, medical director of Providence Holy Cross Department of Emergency Medicine in Mission Hills and his staff these days, said the empty chairs are a symptom of something else, fear. Fisher ended the last week absorbing a sobering toll. Over a 5-day stretch, 8 patients died in his emergency department. That is a staggering number when you take into consideration the typical pre-coronavirus week might see a maximum of 2 deaths. So there you go. There are many consequences to what you're doing. You have to look at the overall picture. And what did the good doctor say? It's fear. When you put the fear of God or whatever into people, they will do most anything. We said it many times on this show. Fear is probably the most powerful motivating force on the face of the earth. You can use that for good. You can use that for evil. The choice is yours on this that we do, and we need to stop using the fear of evil. The fear of evil is scaring people to death over coronavirus unnecessarily. Using fear for good is going out there when you know something is going to happen, like the recent George Floyd tragedy and the riots. You send the police officers and the National Guard and everything you have to stomp that out immediately. You put the fear into the looters and the illegal protesters and the ones that are destroying public and private property and blocking our
and taking
streets.
lives too.
Yes.
They're taking lives. They're going for it.
And that's what you need to, that's where you need to put the fear and use it as a
Definitely.
positive. You can, again, please reconsider the actions that you're doing. Because it's ultimately very dangerous, as we can see the after effects of the COVID scare. And people were on edge anyway. It just took this fuse to light the candle. And you're seeing that because you're not driving past the hood ornament. And when you don't drive past the hood ornament, you crash. You need to look down in every action you take. You need to be looking a block down the road, 5 blocks down the road, a half a mile down the road. You need to see the whole picture. This is the whole picture. Put this up on the screen. Masks do not work. A review of science relative to COVID-19 social policy. It's by DJ Rancourt, Ontario Civil Liberties Association. This is a study that was put out. Masks and respirators do not work. There have been extensive and randomized controlled trial RCT studies and meta-analysis reviews of RCT studies which all show that masks and respirators do not work to prevent respiratory influenza-like illnesses or respiratory illnesses believed to be transmitted by droplets and aerosol particles. Furthermore, the relative known physics and biology which I review are such that masks and respirators should not work. It would be a paradox if masks and respirators work, given what we know about the viral respiratory diseases. The main transmission path is a long residence time in aerosol particles, 2.5 which are too fine to be blocked. And the minimum effective dose is smaller than 1 aerosol particle. The present paper about masks illustrates the degree to which governments, the mainstream media, and institutional propaganda can decide to operate in a science vacuum or select only incomplete science that serves their interests. Such recklessness is also certainty the case with the current global lockdown of over 1 billion people and an unprecedented experiment in medical and political history. Do you want to be known as the ones that fouled this stuff all up? Do you want to be the ones that ignored the real science, the real data, and the sound logic that did not back any of the things that you did? While we cannot change that, you can change what happens in the future. You can stop the madness. You can free our people. You can do what is right so we do not have to suffer not only from the coronavirus madness that went on, from the current riots and unstable civil situation we have going on, because if we don't stop it now, it is only going to continually get worse.
I agree. I don't even know what to say to that. We need to get back to normal. It's all sham. I want to see our world get back. It's depressing. You can see where the suicide rates double and all of that. I mean, I think knowing people too that have been in the hospital that have had heart attacks, car accidents, and it always goes back to COVID. You're sending people home with their heart working at 50% capacity that don't have COVID. For what? Like, it just, none of it makes sense. I can't wrap my head around it.
I can't wrap my head around it either.
I don't think the people locking us down can wrap their head around it either. That's the fear inside of me, is I don't think anyone knows what's really even going on.
And I've said it many times. I really hope this is not the case, but I suspect it is. I think your ego is getting in the way of you admitting that you were wrong. And there's no shame in admitting that you're wrong. But there is shame in perpetuating a wrong. And if you keep this up, you're not only affecting your lives, but you're affecting the lives of the 330 million people in the United States of America. And if we are to get back to pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we're going to have to stop. We're going to have to lay all the cards on the table and be honest about everything. We will forgive you if you do that. If you come to the table and say, honestly, we blew this one, or whatever was the case, but we're not going to do stupid anymore. We're no longer going to lie to you or give you false information or try to prove our case or do whatever. We're going to do what's right for the people. I don't know how else to say it, but I really hope you take these words to heart.
Amen.
That was the tape that we did send to the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. We will be posting that particular clip later on IE Newswire. I did public comments. I asked them to run the tape, which they did not do on that. Go look on the deal in there, see if you, in the few seconds, it was KTLA. No, back up on the, up here in the where the number 11 is on Facebook. That it yeah, see if you can see the KTLA, or no, the next one over. Maybe it's in there. No, I thought it flashed up some of the crowds. The crowds are getting bigger in LA. They're growing. That's what happens when you don't stomp this stuff out when it starts and you let it burn. It gets, the fire gets out of control. And that's what we're suffering from on this stuff, back and forth, each and every day on this. And that's why the grave error of Garcetti, Newsom and stuff, and not nipping this in the bud when it first started, is going to come back to haunt them. And that's why the crowds are getting bigger. They've been emboldened on this stuff. And again, like I said, on a Taco Tuesday on that takeout, and hopefully starting to dine in. And again, anybody that's any restaurant that's around the SoCal area that is not requiring masks is going to get a free 20-second ad for the month of June on
30
Newswire
seconds.
on that, because we want to stop the madness on this stuff, as we're going to be joining KMET here in a few seconds on that, and we'll have Tom Del BECCARO up on the flip side of this, hopefully, after we join KMET.
All right, here we go, guys.
Phone apps. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today. IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every 5:30 Monday through Friday on the Mighty Met 1490 KMET, broadcasting all across the airwaves over the Inland Empire. We ran the first few segments on that, talking about a little bit of the protests and that, and we ran the open video we sent to the Riverside County Board of Supervisors on this whole coronavirus / protesting / everything seems to be going from bad to worse on this, just when we thought, things couldn't get any worse with coronavirus. Here, this whole little thing come on that's got that going on. Our public officials need to get their act together really fast on this stuff, because, man, we're losing it. We're going to have Tom Del BECCARO hopefully on here in a few minutes. He has a column up on Fox News about how we need to get back to work on this stuff and get our economy going and all this amidst that, and not be destroying our businesses that are going on. That's what's shameful in this whole thing, per se, is we're just going crazy with this stuff. And I don't know. Like I said, I thought, how could it get any worse with the coronavirus deal? Well, this whole George Floyd thing's, has come up. But we have the man, the legend on the line that he's runs Political Vanguard, TomDell.com. Of that, he's one of the. I really just enjoy his perspective, and he has a very succinct writing style that gets to the point and gets to it quickly. His latest column is up on Fox News, and I'll let him introduce it because he can do it much better than I can. But Tom Del BECCARO, welcome to IE Newswire Daily with Roy on the show.
Hey, great to be on. Sorry, Stephanie, couldn't be on today. Listen, this is spiraling out of control, and I wrote for Fox Business this week about how this is essentially a double whammy to the small business sector. And I have a new piece coming out on Fox with Stephen Moore about what's needed, or what compared to Joe Biden, who would put us in a depression with his policies. But the reality is that we need small business to be successful. And the coronavirus went on for months. It sapped small business. You have in California, 30 to 40% of restaurants likely won't reopen. And on top of this, you get this, look, I work in Walnut Creek, California, and it's a huge shopping district. It's probably one of the best 2 or 3 shopping districts in California. It's necessary for the California economy, and it is all boarded up, literally, from the Tiffany store to the Neiman Marcus to the Macy's to Williams-Sonoma, and all the small shops around it are really back on their heels. They were being told that they would be able to open up shortly, and now you go there and there's plywood everywhere. And this double whammy is really going to hurt the economy. Keep in mind that economic slowdowns and stagnation lead to division, and it's a pretty simple thing. If you cannot provide for yourself, historically that has meant that people look to others. They want help from the government. They want to raise taxes on others. Class division is the worst during economic stagnation. When the economy's doing well, class warfare tends to go down. That's because when people get jobs for themselves and feel like they're in better control of their future, they literally stop looking at other people's plate and focus on their own. And what we're seeing today, and why, and you can get it at politicalvanguard.com or foxbusinessnews.com, keep in mind that small business has been responsible for decades now with at least creating 61 or 2 or 3% of all of the new jobs in America. And remember, every business was a small business at some point or another. Even the monolith that is Hewlett-Packard, where did they start? 2 guys in a garage. Microsoft, all of them. And we need to be able to support them. And whether it's in California, New York, or anywhere where this violence is going on right now, these chief executives, these governors cannot tolerate the growing violence. That doesn't mean they ignore George Floyd, but it does mean that they act as the chief executive in their state.
Yes, and again, like I said, you were thinking, well, how are we going to dig out of this whole coronavirus catastrophe of that? And it just seems like most of and I said at the beginning of the show, I mean, right off the get-go, I think it was last Friday, Garcetti, Mayor Yoga Pants down here in L.A., and that, come out at 3:30 and said, oh, we don't want the National Guard in here, and Newsom is doing that like, 4 hours later, it's blowing like a powder keg, and they're saying, oh, my God, we got to do something. No, they should have been on this stuff, and they should have stomped this out right at the beginning of this stuff. Because now we're going, on day 4? And we just showed some pictures of the protests are growing down in LA. They're getting bigger and stronger of that because of that initial reaction that they didn't do. They didn't do the proper action in that, which was to put the clamps on this thing right off the beginning. And now it's just growing and growing. And now, I was thinking, maybe we got a slight chance, but if we really buckle down, we can beat the economy on this coronavirus. Now this comes like you're explaining, man, if small businesses didn't have a problem before, now like what you're explaining, like there, I mean, how do we deal with this now, Tom?
Well, think about it. Where I live, countywide, there's now a curfew at 8 p.m. Indefinitely. So any hope that a local restaurant could make plans for the future are literally dashed. They don't even know when to order food. Just think about that. When you have a restaurant, you have to order fresh food. They don't even know when they can do that. And what do these leaders think is going to happen? That suddenly they're going to say, okay, you can open up tomorrow. You know how many orders for food there's going to be? Is everybody going to be able to get it? No. And so the damage is real. And you are right that whether it's Gavin Newsom saying to the protesters, your rage is real, which was completely irresponsible. It's okay for him to say that your feelings are real. Your concerns are real. But you don't fuel the fire by saying your rage is real, because that is used by people. All politicians, left, center, and right, need to temper their language. This is not some process that you can fuel with your own rhetoric. And what also needs to happen is the opposition press and the opposition Democrats and this White House and others need to sit down and make a single policy and statement as best as possible, because this cannot go on as a political football for one side to be victorious of over another. That's not going to work. They have to see us as unified, whether it's those that were suffering the harm to begin with or those committing the crimes. And as you're pointing out, there's no substitute for deterrence. At the end of the day, all of this crime can't be allowed to go on. And as long as we're on that topic, Roy, we've got to talk about California, because the police officers in California are afraid to act lest they be sued. They can't even do their job. They stand, where I live, they're forced to stand by and watch looters. Well, if looters know that they can drive into town and get away with things, they'll do it. And it's proliferating all over the country. They're going from town to town in Contra Costa doing this sort of thing. And now they face a curfew. And I wonder whether, in fact, that curfew will actually be enforced against the bad people that are roaming around seeking and causing the damage.
Yeah, and even, there's been a lot of reports that, they're seeing these out-of-town license plates coming in from different areas of doing this stuff. I mean, and then on top of that, the bricks that just automatically show up at these places, of where the looting starts and stuff. I mean, there's believe it or not, Karen Spiegel, supervisor from Riverside County, mentioned this and said, this is not a coincidence. This is stuff like that. I mean, you even got public officials now stating that there's something else behind this that's, with lack of a better term in my hillbilly way, egging this stuff on.
Well, look, there's no doubt about it. I posted on Facebook the small leaflet where you tear off, and there's a number at it, and that on it, amateur anarchists related to Soros. The number was live. You could actually call the number. There's no question about, look, the mayor of Minneapolis talked about this. Up here in Oakland, very far left mayor said, send us the videos of these perpetrators. We want to pursue them. London Breed, very far left in San Francisco, same sort of statements and rhetoric about the need and that this is being instigated from outside. And these places are already suffering budget busting problems. And so they can't afford to continue to harbor under shutdowns. And so this is a day of reckoning in some respects for a lot of politicians, because they simply can't afford for this to go on and on. And look, you do a show of force, you arrest people, and you make it clear that it won't be tolerated. You had 7 officers last night shot. You've now had multiple fatalities of officers. There was a woman shot a block from my office yesterday, and she happened to be one of the looters, but she was shot. And how long does this go on? Destroying other people's property is only going to divide us further. And for those politicians and media who turn a blind eye to it, or a sympathetic eye, they're making things worse for America. Maybe that's their plan on how to win the election, but their actions shouldn't be condoned or forgotten.
I agree with that. And I don't know if it was a symbolic, but we played Chris Swanson from Flint, Michigan. He took out, he's a county sheriff there right at Ground Zero. He took out the batons, the metal weapons, his deputies did, marched with the guys doing that. And I was a little bit taken aback by Chad Bianco, Riverside County Sheriff, because he took a knee of that. And just from the perception of the Colin Kaepernick knee thing of, America's bad and that stuff of that, and I just thought that, that just maybe is possibly sending a wrong signal to a lot, or perpetuating this anger with another part of the, maybe you're going with one part of the deal, but you're angering another part, and that's going to perpetuate this stuff. I think Chris Swanson did it right. Hey, let's talk. We know we understand you have concerns. Let's talk about it. Let's walk together and deal with this, and let's see if we can work this stuff out. I think that's what you've been advocating too.
Yeah, look, we're at the highest levels. The Democrats need to beat Republicans, and I don't have a problem with at all. I advocate for that these police departments and city officials do need to sit down with these people, but at the same time, it's entirely okay to meet with protesters who have questions about racial issues within any one community. But allowing people to come in and not arresting people while they're looting will only encourage this to go on and on. And the staggering thing about this, Roy, is they're on Twitter and they're using Twitter as a meetup mechanism. They telegraph in advance often where they're going to be. And somehow our police are so hamstrung that they can't even stop it under those circumstances. It's not acceptable. The freeway was shut down not far from where I live. Again, you had someone shot. This is serious stuff, and it needs a serious unified response. And the fact that we don't get that, the fact that the media is so focused on criticism of the president, or Nancy Pelosi, whose sole purpose seems to be to criticize the president, he's got a hard enough time dealing with the violence, but he needs the opposition party. What's their plan?
Exactly. And I wasn't more prouder of President Trump when he said, governors, local officials, if you don't clean this up, the federal government will take action on this, because if we don't have safety amongst the citizens, we really don't have anything,
at all.
Anything else. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, California can't provide consistent electricity to its businesses and people. It can't provide water consistently to its people. And now you can add safety. Other than that, it's extremely well run. Oh, and that whole $54 billion deficit thing. Other than that, it's really run well.
Yeah, just ask Gavin Newsom. He'll tell you that.
Yeah. Who was on a hiatus.
Yeah,
by the way,
or was on a high. We ran the clip yesterday of his press conference, and I mean, you need to do that. I actually should make a clip of it. His little hand gestures and not saying anything was some of the most bizarre things I've ever seen at a governor's press conference. It would have been funny if it wasn't exactly in live real time.
Yeah, well, he is not demonstrating leadership. You don't go AWOL during a crisis. There's a lot of things he could have done. He could have met with some of the community leaders. But at the end of the day, it turns out that crime can be stopped through law enforcement. And he has hamstrung in this state law enforcement and those allied with him so much that they're having a difficult time stopping it, and it's going to proliferate. And there's, no immediate end in sight.
That's the sad part of it is, and like I said, I mean, it's kind of the be careful what you wish for, you just might get it, because we were all wishing the coronavirus thing would go away, but not wishing it would go away because of this and the situation we're having to deal with on that. It's, it's like again, like I say, sometimes I say, I keep the duct tape up here on the table because I got to wrap my head around it because I think it's going to explode. And I mean, sometimes just as we think we're starting to turn the corner on this coronavirus thing, here comes this on that. But got about a minute left, so I'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, well, look, we're going to see if leadership rises here in California. You pointed out Garcetti was all against it, and now he realizes how bad it is. So we're going to see if leadership rises. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why the new recall movement is starting for Gavin Newsom. He is not prepared to do this job. Roy, thanks so much. And people can check me out at politicalvanguard.com and look for my new op-ed in Fox coming out this week. Thank you.
Look forward to it, and we'll do it again real soon. Thanks, Tom.
Bye-bye.
There's a great Tom Del BECCARO on there with all his insights on that. And like I say, not only is he a great writer, but he's very articulate and a very thoughtful speaker on all these issues on that. And like I say, I mean, there's one of the guys I agree with like 98.7% of the time on this stuff. And amongst that stuff, and even when we have disagreed a few things on that, we do so respectfully. And that's what I'd like to talk about a lot on what we're doing now, or what where I see the future is this, because we've been dealt a bad hand. We were dealt a bad hand with coronavirus, and it seems like it's getting worse with this whole George Floyd protests, looting, lawlessness, whole thing that's going on. And we really do need to start having the conversations. And yeah, if you do have concerns, let's bring them to the table. There's all sorts of venues on this to do that. Get involved. I was kind of disappointed at the Riverside County Supervisors. Only 2 or 3 people showed up in public comments not on the agenda. Where was the big rallying cry rush or, dealing with these concerns we have going on now? Because as Tom mentioned, $54 billion shortfall in the California state budget, record of all time, blowing away the 08-09 after the last recession we did when we had, I think, $40 billion hole in the 09 budget. It's absolutely incredulous. And I mean, $100 billion in $100 million, I should say, in the Riverside County budget, and on and on and on it goes. I mean, we are beyond broke over the coronavirus stuff. And if small businesses and business in general cannot get back or their property is destroyed, they're on top of this. After not having a lot of businesses, having no income for 2 or 3 months, and having to try and pay the bills and pay the rent and keep the business going, or some business owners have been, going in the hole trying to keep their people working and all this stuff. And then certain factions think they can just, bust through the windows and that. Again, I mentioned Karen Spiegel. She talked about the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. She talked about, there's other forces behind that. Talked about the lootings that were going on in Corona. And just after, about an hour after, right there in downtown Riverside, when Sheriff Chief Bianco met with the protesters and had the kneeling thing, about an hour later, I mean, the riot, they're back then, they're throwing firecrackers or explosives into cars, looting businesses and stuff. So, in amongst the stuff, we still got to look at what we're doing, and if we're doing if we're coming up with the right policies of that. I mean, we started off, it's like, what is it, Groundhog Day, the movie, where it just repeats the same day over and over again. It's like that. Okay, we made, mistakes were made in the coronavirus. Maybe we didn't, our leaders didn't do the right policies. Then they double down when this situation has. And as Tom explained, and a lot of us are doing on that, and President Trump said, you got to stomp this stuff out. When you see lawlessness, especially starting to proliferate, you got to stomp it out at the source, at the beginning, because again, it's like that spark. A spark of in itself is not dangerous, but if that spark starts a fire and that fire does not put out and it finds fuel to start spreading, as we have seen in California across the past few years, that can be devastating loss of life by the thousands, billions of dollars of property destroyed. And now we're going through this same cycle again over a different thing. And it just seems like we cannot get out of this cycle of destruction that we're putting in. We're trying to play class warfare or pick sides or my side is better or you're not listening. No, I think everybody, if you come to the table and reasonably have a discussion, there is no way you're not going to be heard. And I will be one of the first ones to defend that right of you to make your voice heard. As this. Police zone meetings. One of the biggest disappointments I've seen in my city of Moreno Valley is they have quarterly police zone meetings, and they have the city cut in 4 police zones, and they have one every quarter and that. And sometimes only 2 or 3 or 4 people will show up. Maybe once in a while if there's something hot, 20 or 30 will show up, but then it quickly dissipates. Instead of, that's what they're there for, to engage with your police officers. Coffee with a cop. You see them sitting at the donut shop. Let's do the same old joke that goes on. walk up to them and talk to them. If you have concerns with them and you're not calling them names or blaming them or calling them racist, saying, hey, this is what I think. What do you see? Or how do we work this out? Or how do we get a solution? You'll find that probably 98.7% of them will listen to you and take your concerns to heart. Now, they can't solve everything. We have lots of problems. A lot of California, like Tom Del BECCARO said, we can't run electricity, water, or freeway system, and now a $54 billion hole in the budget. And then on the crime deal, like 4757. And it was amazing. You talk about the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. DA Mike Hestron went up there and said, there's some things that need to be fixed. We're turning out criminals of that. There's some things that need to be fixed of 4757. It's not totally bad legislation, but it needs some fine-tuning. And chairman of the board, Manny Perez, voted against it, said, well, I couldn't understand it. Like, what wasn't there to understand? It was very clearly explained. Now, if you want to vote against it for a reason, then state that, but don't try and hide behind I'm confused. As Tom said, we got to have leadership. No more than today, we desperately need leaders to step forward and grab the bull by the horns and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fix this stuff. We're going to work 24/7, 365 until we get it turned around. Because we cannot stand any more of this. We cannot stand, we couldn't stand the coronavirus. We cannot stand what's going on now. It will be the destruction. It will be the final nail in the coffin if we let this stuff fester and we don't get control of it and we don't get us back on track. And that's why I put out the offer. Any businesses, any restaurants that are not using masks at any time going in are going to get a free 20-second ad throughout the month of June on IE Newswire on the show on this, because we got to stop doing stupid. We got to get back on track. We got to get after it, and hopefully, and that's the way we will turn this stuff around. So we'll be back tomorrow with Stephanie on Wicked Wednesday. See ya.